Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again today. Good to have you along. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Brian McComak. Brian is the CEO and founder of an amazing business called Hummingbird Humanity, and it's got such a wonderful headline. I love it. It's amplifying the voices of the unheard. And we're going to get into how Hummingbird does that. But firstly, Brian, hello, and thank you for joining me.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Brilliant. And whereabouts are you calling in from?
Today, I'm calling in from Tampa, Florida. I'm spending a few days with my parents.
Nice. It's a nice sunny day for you?
Well, it's still dark here. We're starting a little early for Floridian, but but the weather has been beautiful. So this is that time of the year where Florida isn't too humid, which is nice.
Yeah, good to avoid that stuff. Yep. So folks, Brian is a diversity and inclusion consultant, speaker, author, and facilitator with over 25 years of experience in D&I, HR, change management, internal communications, talent development, and employee experience. Brian, you've done it all. Brian has worked in leadership roles at companies that include the Walt Disney Company, L'Oreal, and Christie's Auction House, and his experience spans a diverse variety of industries from fashion, retail, hospitality, auction, entertainment, media, etc. And he's consulted with organizations in technology, financial services, media, and not-for-profit. Wow, Brian, you have been busy, I have to say. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, I don't sleep, so that's how I do all of those things. I mean, because I'm only 30, so I've really been fortunate to have a fantastic career, and I always knew I was gonna, or I guess I believed maybe I was gonna become a consultant, and I wanted to have a lot of different experiences before I moved into the consulting space. So I'm really fortunate for everyone who gave me an opportunity to learn and grow.
That is brilliant. Yeah, I love it. So let's start. Can you just give us a quick snapshot of your background and then what led to the formation of Hummingbird Humanity?
Sure. Well, one thing that you won't find on really probably anywhere online anymore is my first career was in movie theaters. I worked for AMC Theaters for 10 years, and I was in that business when megaplexes came on the screen. I opened the second megaplex with stadium seating that ever existed.
Wow.
So that was a fun career, and I loved working, running movie theaters, but I realized that I wasn't going to want to work until 6 a.m. on a regular basis at some point in my life, because movie theaters stay open pretty late. So I got my master's degree from the University of Central Florida and moved into HR, and I've spent the last almost 25 years now in various human resources roles. If you can, as you've already noted, if you can name it in HR, I've done it in some way, shape, or form. I won't claim to be great at all of it, but I've had the opportunity to explore HR in many ways. Yeah. And about 8 years ago, at the Walt Disney Company is when I moved into diversity and inclusion. My boss there, a wonderful woman named Buki Famosa. Buki said to me one day, "Brian, you're a great HR person, but I think you're a diversity person." And she got me on the Corporate Diversity Council at the Walt Disney Company, which led to the work that I do today, where I try to combine my experience and understanding of HR and business with the learnings I've had about diversity and inclusion, and try to bring that to organizations through the work we do at Hummingbird.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good that you got that diversity of experience, because it then informs the decisions and the guidance, and even I'm assuming the challenges that come with influencing and creating change, lasting change in organizations. You need to be able to talk the talk in terms of the HR, change management, L&D, all sorts of stuff, not just one segment of one component, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that you picked that up. Sometimes what I say is really what my expertise is in change management, of how do we drive organizational change, and I do it through different lenses, whether that's company culture or employee experience or org design, and now I really drive or attempt in my best, efforts to drive change through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's something that I hope I hope that there are others doing this in similar ways to what we do at Hummingbird. But one of the challenges I find with some of the DEI work that happens is it is missing some of those perspectives on how organizations work and how change happens. So many of us will have heard that sometimes DEI feels like something else rather than part of, and it really does have to be part of everything we do. And so that's what we try to infuse in the work we do at Hummingbird.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said earlier that Hummingbird is all about amplifying the voices of the unheard. So let's talk about Hummingbird Humanity. What do you folks do? What's the actual business structure, and what do you provide to employers and employees, I guess?
Sure. Well, I'll start with just a bit about how Hummingbird started. So about, I guess it's almost 2.5 years ago, in fall of 2019, I left my last in-house role in corporate America, where I was the global head of inclusion and diversity at Tapestry, which is the home of Coach Kate Spade and Stuart Weitzman. Great company, great opportunity, loved the time that I had there. And I just felt like I had an opportunity to make a difference in more workplaces and impact more humans. So I decided to take the leap to consulting, which of course in fall of 2019 seemed like a good idea. In March of 2020, it seemed like a terrible idea when the pandemic hit. At that point, organizations in March of 2020 had stopped investing very quickly in DEI. That was the first budget item that got cut in the HR space. So in May of 2020, I launched Hummingbird really as an opportunity to stay in the conversation in the marketplace. So we launched Hummingbird with a live conversation series called Hope, Heart, and the Human Spirit. And then in June of 2020, after George Floyd's murder, which tragic, but opened the eyes of so many people in different ways that it hadn't, and particularly those in corporate leaders, I started getting calls in June of 2020, and that's where Hummingbird was really got its start. And so today what we do is we help organizations. A big part of our work is in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. But we also, because of my background and our beliefs, we help companies with their company culture efforts and their employee experience efforts. And our twist on this work is, I can play in the strategy space, in the philosophy space, and the how do we think about this space, which is fun. I love those conversations, but we really try to always begin with the person in mind, the human in mind, the individual in mind, and build the strategy and the efforts we take from there, which is where the amplifying the voices of the unheard comes from.
Yeah, brilliant. So the actual services, you've been quite, specific or clever in the way you've structured things. You've got, there's a DEI, a DNA assessment, and then there's the listening sessions and empathy circles. There are diversity learning circles. There's ERG design and development. Can I ask, how did you choose what to do, how to structure it, how to slice and dice what you do, almost to package that up so it's more understandable? Is that what you've done? And can you explain what services you offer?
Yeah. I will fully acknowledge that it happened organically. So we started with, what do organizations need? So something we say when we start talking to a potential client is, we don't do plug and play, or here's the box that we're going to pull off the shelf and we're going to apply it to your company. So we just evolved our services based on what were the challenges that our clients were facing, and also how do we think about it through the lens of what we believe in. So the DEI DNA assessment is our commitment to starting with the voices of the employees at your organization, the organization of our clients. We always want to make sure that what we're delivering in the work that we do meets the needs of that specific group of employees, that population. And we try to meet our clients where they are. And, the reality is in the DEI space, different companies and different groups of humans are starting from different places. And that's okay. We want them to be on the journey, and we want to help them wherever they are in that journey. So we start with that DEI DNA assessment as a way to really get a good understanding of where the employees are and where the organization is on their DEI journey, so then we can build a plan. And that's the way we've really tried to think about it, is we assess and then we plan or strategize. We use the strategy word that many of us, some of us love and some of us say it's overused. And then we can help with the implementation and some things that we aren't the expert at in the implementation space. We have partners that we can work with as well. And that framework, I would love to say that it's like the most innovative framework. It's a fairly straightforward framework that certainly other consulting firms use. But we've also found is when we, as a new business, we've not been, around for it's just under 2 years now. If we skip the assessment phase, or then and we don't confirm that the client has done their own assessment, and we try to show up and sort of dive in at a specific point in the journey without doing that check, it doesn't work as well. So we really try to make sure that whether we or the client has done that assessment, that it really informs the way that we do our work.
Otherwise, it's just building a house on shaky foundations, right? So you need to make sure that's all leveled out. And is that a set time period? And it's you do the assessment, or is it self-assessment questionnaires? I'm just curious how you structure it.
Oh, sure. Well, to some degree, it depends on some of the organizational influences, and the size of the organization, how quickly they are comfortable with moving. But typically, our clients tend to be small to medium-sized businesses under 500 employees. And they tend to be in the clients that we seem to really excel with are those that have a purpose orientation. So whether they're a not-for-profit or a for-profit with a purpose orientation, like one of our big clients is a for-profit business in the financial service industry, but they build affordable housing communities. So they have a purpose orientation to what they do. So we tend to work with small to medium-sized businesses that have a purpose orientation. And when we do the DEI DNA assessment, it takes about 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks for us to do that assessment. And it includes 4 components. We have one-on-one interviews with the leaders, the leadership team, and occasionally key influencers in this work for driving organizational change. We do focus groups. We deliver an electronic survey, and we have a couple different versions of that survey. We have a small version that works in the more specifically in the DEI space, and then we also have a larger version, which is a more akin to an employee experience survey that you might see in and over the years in employee engagement approaches. And then we also look at company materials. So what's on your website? What's on your social media? What are the what are the materials you provide to employees that tell the story about who you are as an employer? And we then collect all of that information and synthesize it and develop a perspective on what's working, what's not working, where do you need to go? And that is really what helps us define how do we start where that group of humans is, where that organization is, and take them on the journey to creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace.
Nice, very nice. It's very comprehensive. And I'm guessing that there are plenty of side benefits. It's not just DEI related, because when you're going to be having focus groups, one-to-one sessions, electronic feedback, things like that, you're going to uncover things about communication flow, and even just you'll probably discover that the procedures are broken and stuff like that, which will then affect clients or customers and cash flow and all kinds of stuff. So even though you focus on a particular area, I wouldn't be surprised if you uncovered certain other things. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely fair to say. And the, excuse me, What's interesting about that survey is, and I think that's part of where I've been able to continue to develop my perspective on DEI and how DEI work influences organizational change and company culture. Is yes, that's the entry point. The language we're using is, let's do a DEI DNA assessment, but in large and in a significant way, it is really about what is the culture of your company.
Yeah.
It's just through the lens of DEI and understanding how different individuals from underrepresented or marginalized communities, how they're experiencing your company culture. And you're right, that some of the insights we have are about how, let's use my identity for a moment, of how LGBTQ plus individuals are experiencing your company culture. But the company culture isn't specifically driven by individual experiences. It's driven by leadership decisions and communication, and how you're designing your benefits packages, and what you're doing to create an environment where everyone feels they belong. So it's it isn't about the identity, it's about the culture, but the two of them intersect. And I think that's really one of the ahas that I've had over the last few years is, I was an HR person for a long time, and I've done more employee engagement survey deliveries than I can count. And I've analyzed them and synthesized the data and created plans. And I want to believe that I did good work. I think I did good work. What I've also come to understand, and this is that aha moment, is up until a couple of years ago, when I was analyzing survey data, it was always synthesizing the data at the population, from the population perspective. So the organization, the function, the department, the team. What happens though is, when you take it from that lens, from that big picture lens, you sanitize or take out the individual experiences of individuals that are from the minority groups in those populations, because the larger population, the typically white individuals, typically white cisgender, often straight individuals, those are the voices that get heard when you do that assessment. So we try to flip that on its head and say, okay, let's understand the experiences of your employees through the individual groups. So our assessment also includes a collection of demographic data, so we can understand what do your Black employees feel? What do your queer employees of color feel? What do your employees with a disability feel? And so that our assessment does the analysis starting with those different lenses, and we draw the insights on your culture starting with those voices of the unheard.
That's brilliant. Yeah, from an analogy. From a political analogy, let's say, if you summarize the entire population from political spectrum, extreme left to extreme right, if you just average it out, everyone's slap bang in the middle. You think there's no crazies on either side or on any spectrum. But yeah, to sort that out and looking at the demographics of the workforce, and then looking at the one-to-ones, the focus groups, and slicing and dicing into different categories. I think that's how you get a much more accurate reflection, for sure. What are the listening circles? So you've got listening sessions and empathy circles, and also the diversity learning circles. They sound really interesting. What have you got there?
Sure. The listening sessions and empathy circles are really two versions of I'll call them organizational healing. One thing that we have found that some organizations need, and probably more than some at different points in time, is just the ability and the support with listening to each other, hearing each other, understanding the pain that some employees are feeling and experiencing. So we started as many others did in the summer of 2020 with helping organizations hear their Black employees, hear what it feels like to be a Black person in the United States, hear what it feels like to be a Black person working in a company, an organizational environment. And I'm focusing on the United States. The reality is those experiences are, of marginalized individuals happen around the world. But it really is just a facilitated conversation that allows for safety and allows for employees to really share their authentic experiences as an individual from a marginalized community. Excuse me. The empathy circles are similar. So typically the listening sessions are guided around a specific group of individuals. So like Black employees, which was largely in the summer of 2020, and certainly those conversations are still happening today. Or the AAPI, the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, conversations around the hate crimes and how that's impacted those communities. So typically listening sessions are created to allow the individuals from that community to share their experiences. Empathy circles, it takes it to another place where it's more of a group of individuals sharing with each other. And so it amplifies other experiences. The reality is that once you start the conversation and create space for real, authentic storytelling, and for people to share those lived experiences, other experiences start to bubble up in those spaces. And something we've tried to borrow from in that, as we architect those spaces is, from psychology and professionals that work in the mental health space, as how do they create spaces for sharing and for learning and for hearing. So I've spent a lot of time in therapy, so some of it I borrow from my own experiences. And we actually have one of our team members at Hummingbird is a master's in psychology, so he helps us to craft those experiences. The diversity learning circles, or which we now call the DEI learning circles, we haven't updated all of our language on our website yet, is a 10-week program where we take a group of, typically it's a group of leaders or managers, through a learning experience where each week they absorb about an hour's worth of content. They listen, read, or watch about a DEI topic, which can include topics like implicit bias or microaggressions, but we also have weeks that are focused on white supremacy and company culture and the patriarchy. And we come together as a group each week for 90 minutes and have a facilitated dialogue around that content we've absorbed. And it's a really powerful and sometimes difficult journey that those employees go through. What it's really focused on, though, is not, we believe that that understanding and awareness is a cornerstone to driving change. And we won't be able to learn and absorb and understand all of the things about all of the different experiences. Amplifying the voices of the unheard is a commitment that will never be done, and we'll never know all the things. So that program is really focused on driving a foundational understanding and awareness that we do as individuals and as humans have different lived experiences. And then focuses on how do we build the skills and capabilities to have meaningful, respectful dialogue and conversation to understand how our experiences are different, so we can really see each other and respect each other in ways that we may not have before, because most of us didn't grow up in a world that taught us how to have those conversations. So it's largely a skill building course. That by the end of the 10 weeks, we find that the participants are really able to have those conversations in a respectful, thoughtful, engaged way. And even if they disagree, that's okay. We don't say that everyone has to agree. We don't say that you have to leave the program with these beliefs. It's really about how do you leave the program with the ability to hear and listen and see others through a different lens.
I love it. Yeah. And again, the impact would be so huge. But I also imagine that there are major flow-on effects. You cannot help but have a more communicative team of leaders, frontline leaders, et cetera, going through that program, who, when they have a problem, a work-related issue, they're going to communicate much better with the people they've been going through this program with on the diversity side of things. But it's going to affect their work in a much more positive way. They're going to be a much more cohesive team. Would that be accurate?
Well, that's certainly our hope. And I do think that I do think your assessment there is accurate. And I'll share a specific example. In week one, we provide foundational tools, frameworks for how to have respectful dialogue. One of those is a tool called Practice the Pause. Practice the Pause is something that I've learned in my work and my own mental health and just how I react and live life. And so as much as hopefully I'm coming across as a very even, calm, centered person today, occasionally I have emotional moments, and sometimes my what happened over the years is my emotions. My sister would say, Brian, you're a very sensitive person, which I love. I think that serves me well, but occasionally it can be a bit of an Achilles heel. And if I let the emotion guide my reaction to a situation, and many of us will have heard the don't say something you can't take back. I'll say something that is driven by emotion, didn't have the thoughtfulness and consideration that I'd like, and then it takes a lot of energy to okay, how do I walk that back? How do I apologize? How do I make it right? Practice the pause is a way to just take a moment to take a beat before reacting, and it's led by 5 questions. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said by me? Can I say it with care, love, and respect? And can I say it in a way the other person can hear me? And usually when I use Practice the Pause as a tool, it certainly helps me avoid creating moments that are aren't the intent or that I would want, that where they create harm or pain or discomfort, and allow me to make sure that the way I show up is aligned with my values. So we teach this tool in that first session of the DLC. What we have, and it's interesting how many. For me, it has been interesting how many leaders really find that to be a profound framework for them to lead and manage. And to your point, it started for me, using that framework as a way to manage emotion. And by the way, I think it's okay that I have emotion and that you have emotion and that we all have emotions.
Not a cyborg,
workplaces. What was that?
You're not a cyborg or something? No,
we're human. We're humans, and we have emotions, and those emotions come with us wherever we are. So that's where it started from for me. But what I found is that leaders see all of these other perspectives on how they can use Practice the Pause. And what one of the perspectives that I've really found interesting is leaders have said that it helps them manage and lead better. So it helps them focus on being curious, focus on listening, focusing on allowing space for the people that they're managing or leading. So I do think, back to where your thought was, I do think it helps teams to be better teams, and leaders to be better leaders. It isn't only focused on the DEI component of it, although that is certainly the core focus. It has other the learning has other impacts.
Yeah. Can I shift the focus for a moment to you as a business manager, a business leader? When a CEO or a CFO looks at a budget, it's the age-old HR-related thing. We have issues, we want to make improvements, we want to make changes. What will we do? And perhaps an HR leader is recommending that we look at some DEI programs, or they look at employee engagement, or let's improve our recruitment process, whatever it may be. In the work you do and in your efforts to grow your business, how do you answer the question of why why your business offering versus something else?
It's a great question. And first of all, I want to just acknowledge, because as I was listening to you, to frame the question, I was an HR person for my entire career, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I tried to understand the business, understand the various aspects of the business, understand the P&L, because that's to be a truly effective HR professional, I believe you do need to understand how the business works, right? I now am in the seat of I'm a CEO. Some days I'm a reluctant CEO because I'm still finding my grounding in being a CEO and being the actually responsible for the P&L in a way that I never have been before. So that is that's something that's been an interesting journey for me and has helped, I think, to continue to inform how I think about my work when I'm working with the clients we work with. So one of the starting points for me, though, is I want to be able to say authentically, if I'm working with a client, that I'm doing the things that I'm suggesting you do or challenging you to do. So how do we ensure that at Hummingbird we are taking our own medicine, if you will? What does that look like? So I think that's a starting point for me. When we're talking about the DEI work and how we are encouraging our clients and the leaders we engage with to take these steps forward, we have one of the phrases we use is good for humanity, good for business. So I would love to for leaders just to say this is just the right thing to do and we should do it. And I do believe that, by the way, that it is the right thing to do, that there are that organizations, I believe, have a responsibility to create environments that are respectful and inclusive to everyone. And so that's a belief that I have. That said, I get that as business leaders, we have to make decisions that are responsible. We are, particularly, I guess it's true for every organization, whether you're a privately owned organization or a publicly owned organization, there's a responsibility to a stakeholder who has a financial investment in that business, and they want to know you're making responsible decisions that have a return on investment. What I believe, and of course there are statistics to back this up, is if you create environments where humans thrive, those humans then will be better able to create success for your business and drive organizational growth, drive profitability, drive change that will be meaningful for your customers, your clients. So we try to find a balance in those conversations of like, hey, it's the right thing to do. And if you just need the extra thing, it's also good for your business. So let's create a workplace where humans thrive, and we'll see how that benefits the success of your organization.
Nice. Are there any particular aspects to your services that employers typically go for first and then move into a wider consulting project?
The two, actually, I guess there are, and these are the services that you've already highlighted. I guess two of them, and one of them I'll add here. So typically, we start with the DEI DNA assessment. And even if we're starting with a smaller engagement that's not necessarily looking at organizational culture, we'll do some sort of assessment or evaluation to understand where employees are. So that's often the starting point, is that assessment. And we tell companies, after the assessment, if you want us to help you and continue that work with you, great. If not, we give you as much information as we can so you can take it and run with it, or engage other partners. Typically our clients say that they want to continue working with us after that assessment, but we really set them up for a way, for whatever the next steps are that they feel are right for them. So the assessment is one of the key ways that we enter. Listening sessions is another. Typically those are ignited when there's a crisis moment, either in the context of the world around us or in something that's happened within the organization, and we are invited in to help navigate and facilitate dialogue to help with the healing. And that usually leads to other steps. And then the third is we have as many firms will have, is a foundational course that we call DEI Foundations. And it's a foundational program that covers the basics of what is DEI, why does it matter, and we focus on the human iceberg, which you may be familiar with, and others will be familiar with as well, which is a visual that helps to illuminate the different visible and invisible experiences that we each have. And then we talk about some of the ways to be an ally and some tools to be inclusive. So it's a fairly foundational program, and that's often a program that people that our clients are looking for just to get the ball rolling. Yeah. Typically, what we try to do is, if we have the ability to architect the roadmap, is we'll do the assessment first, and then while we are building a strategic roadmap from the assessment, we deliver the DEI Foundations training at the same time, because we want employees to feel like there is movement and ongoing activity. So because the roadmap design happens behind the scenes, and employees don't see that. Yes. So it's a way to keep the conversation going in the organization. And DEI Foundations every organization will need some version of that as they're starting their journey. So those are the things that typically the ways that we enter.
Got it. And the Foundations, that's recorded or a live event thing?
It's a live event. Yeah, we have not moved yet into the developing video modules of our programs. It's something that I think may happen in the next year or two with Hummingbird. But generally, we deliver all of our programs live through. We always have 2 facilitators in our programs, and 2 facilitators, and we really try to have those facilitators have different lived experiences. So yeah, it's all live at this point.
I live in the online world, I guess, but I think nothing beats live and in person, and secondly, it does embed the change you're trying to create, and from a business perspective, it's far more likely to lead to more business and more consulting projects and things like that. So I'm not suggesting you change it. In terms of growing the business, what's worked for you in terms of getting new clients, and what do you think you'd do in the future to grow your business?
The client growth from Hummingbird has been really driven by my network. My friend Eduardo Placer, who's the founder of Fearless Communicators, he has said that my superpower is that I'm a connector. And so, and largely that for me is focused on how do I help others build connections? How do I make introductions? Almost every podcast I've been on, I've reached out to the host afterwards, and I've said, "Hey, you really should talk to these 2 people," because I love just making connections. It brings me joy, and so I think that commitment I have to helping others make connections has served me and served Hummingbird well, because some of those people have come to us and asked for help, and I've been able to, or they've suggested to people in their network to reach out to us. So that has really been the foundational driver for growth at Hummingbird. What's been exciting in the last few months is we've started to have 2 other avenues that have driven clients, business development opportunities. So one is that our clients have referred people in their network to us. Nice. So that is really one of the biggest compliments I think we can receive. So that's been a new avenue. And then the other is, of course, we have an online presence, and you can find us if you do a Google search. And we actually just about a month ago landed our first client that came from a Google search that they found us that way, and we won the business, which was a big moment for us. So I think we're starting to to expand, where our reputation and our credibility in the marketplace is driving additional business development leads. But I think this work is that we do is so personal, and so it's emotional, and it's people really have to let you behind the gold curtain, or whatever phrase you want to use. It's because you get to learn all of the good, bad, and the ugly about the organization. So that connection for building trust and building and having the ability to say, like, hey, I'm going to say some things to you they're going to be challenging, that are going to be uncomfortable, because I'm going to help you understand how you can manage your organization or lead in a different way. The organization and the leaders that are our partners, they have to trust us. So it doesn't surprise me that that largely our clients have come from my network, because there's a trust component to that is inherent to the work we do.
That, and you mentioned the types of clients or businesses that you're going for are of a certain size, but also they're purpose-led organizations. There are certain values that seem to run through all of them, so that would naturally feed into you. You run webinars or Hummingbird Hour, I think. How do you find those? Do you enjoy doing them?
I do. Well, and as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the Hummingbird was really started by one of those live conversation series, which was at that time called Hope, Heart, and the Human Spirit. We now call it Hummingbird Hour, but it's my version of getting to play the role that you're playing right now, Ben.
It's a lot more fun on this side.
Yeah. Well, and of course, I love to learn about others, and I love to to learn from others. So being the host of Hummingbird Hour, I do enjoy. Right now, we are focused. So I have I still can't believe I can say this, but I wrote a book, and it's coming out this fall. It's called Humanity in the Workplace. And
tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I'll share something about Hummingbird Hour first, in that as we're tracking towards the release of my book this fall, I wanted Hummingbird Hour to amplify other voices of other authors who are from marginalized communities, and the books they've written to make workplaces better. So that is our current Hummingbird Hour focus, is those other authors, and that I'm really enjoying. And also I hear about their journeys with bringing their books to the world, but also with, how they're trying to drive organizational change. So that's something I'm really enjoying right now. And my book is really synthesizing so much what we've talked about, Ben, is how do we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts through this, I'm going to say, this bigger lens of humanity, and how do we create workplaces where humans thrive, and how do we think about the heart and soul of organizations. So the message is yes, it's about DEI. It's also about well-being. It's about how do we rethink our communication approaches, which historically communication approaches that are informed by white supremacy thinking are very controlled. They tend to not be transparent. So how do we think about creating workplaces where we tell the story as it is, and trust the humans that work at our organization to be professionals and responsible with that information? What does that look like? So it's my vision for how we can do work better, and through the lens of humanity. So I'm excited about that book. Again, still can't believe that I can say that I wrote a book. I've been threatening to write a book for about a decade. So it's exciting to see it come to life.
Well done. And do get back in touch when you go live. Brian, last question: why Hummingbird? What is there a symbol behind that?
So I'm a big fan of traditional greeting cards, because as we've talked about, I mentioned a couple times, we have moved into this digital reality where we can all connect digitally, and we can go through digital or recorded training and so on, right? So everything happens electronically today. So I'm a big fan of the Papyrus brand. If anyone else is a big Papyrus greeting cards, they have beautiful cards. As my mom would say, Brian, they're too expensive and stop buying their cards, but I think they're worth every penny. The Hummingbird is the icon that Papyrus uses, and they have this really beautiful message that talks about how hummingbirds are a symbol of joy and connection. And when I was trying to think of the name for my business, I knew I wanted humanity to be, or human to be in the name in some way. And I happened to be reading the why Hummingbird for Papyrus, and that's where it came to be, is Hummingbird humanity. And the thing that has evolved for me as I've continued to think about this why, because of course I get this question on a regular basis, is I also think that hummingbirds are representative of the message that we're trying to deliver at Hummingbird, to amplify the voices of the unheard. And that hummingbirds, I think, are, if you first glance at them and you don't know anything about the hummingbird, you might underestimate the bird. It's a very powerful bird. It can fly backwards. It's the only bird that can fly backwards. So there's more than you can see there at first glance. And I think that's really the core of the work that we do is, don't judge a book by its cover. Get to know the rest of the story. So I think there's this other why that's materialized that I really appreciate.
Brilliant. Well, it's a great choice. I really love it. Brian, thank you very much for sharing your story and your insights and your advice. And I just wish you all the best with it. You're doing great work, so keep it going.
Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. I'll be back in touch when my book comes out, and we can hopefully have another conversation then. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.